What is going on, everybody, and welcome to the Monday edition of the Stochastic NHL Strategy Show. I'm your host, Josh Harris. Joining me, as always, Slim Cliffy. How was your weekend?
Pretty good weekend. I didn't really do a whole lot. Like I said on Saturday show, I went to Dune 2 on Friday night. That was pretty awesome. Wrestling pay-per-view last night. Watched some afternoon hockey yesterday. Wasn't a lot on, so I decided to watch the Arizona Coyotes and Washington Capitals. I really regret wasting those 3 hours of my life, but so it goes. But really, really interesting slate, 6-gamer that we have here ahead of us tonight. We have some decent contests on DraftKings, and there's some pretty big news coming on the slate. We'll get to the first game eventually, but it looks like Jack Eichel's probably coming back for Vegas. He's been out nearly 2 months. With injury. Travis Konechny still not back for the Flyers. That's kind of brutal. Calgary is without Connor Zary, who's honestly, other than Connor Bedard, has been arguably the top rookie this season. I mean, if you want to say Brock Faber, then that's fine, but Zary would probably be in the top 3. So a lot of moving parts, a lot of different line combinations. Makes for an interesting slate, even though we have that Goliath towering over the Chicago Blackhawks later in the slate, which is drawing an obscene amount of ownership and is probably going to be even higher than what we have projected. So going to be fun to watch this slate unfold here tonight. Kind of excited to break it down.
At least McKinnon's 10-5. You know what I mean? So, like, the one-off McKinnons might have to pay a little extra there. I mean, he should be 11K. He should be like 12K on this slate, but
that's what I was kind of thinking. I was like, yeah, okay, it's nice that he's 10-5, but how expensive would he have to be to not be 30% owned here tonight? Like 12K at least. So, like, you know, he's still going to just be monstrously owned, especially in single entry contests.
Yeah, I don't really want to play Colorado here tonight. And you'll get my thoughts later on that. But, like, I don't know, man. It's going to be a massive buckle up if you fade them because it's in Colorado. They can dictate the matchups. They're not going to see that Dickinson line. They are going to run over the Bedard line. But we'll get to that game when we get to that game. Let's get into it. Before we do, just want to say thank you again for all your support with the affiliate links, sign-ups, the super chats, the likes, the whatever, really. You guys have your very loyal community. That's what we like here. Loyalty. I don't know what I was going for there. Something.
Yeah, I don't know what voice that was.
My voice is still a little bit messed up. I don't know. I don't know. For some reason, Vince McMahon was in my head, but that wasn't even a very good Vince McMahon. I don't even know why I'm going Vince McMahon. He loves his loyalty. He's going to be loving his loyalty from Bubba in his jail cell pretty soon. But am I okay? You've known me for a long time. You know the answer to that question. The answer is no.
I mean, that's not a question we need to ask anymore.
Yeah, like serious problems. But let's get into the slate. Vegas Golden Knights. 3.6 total. What did I do to the run sheet? I don't know what I just did. It's all right. We can make it work. Vegas Golden Knights with a 3.6 total. Heading into Columbus, the Blue Jackets have, what am I doing? A 2.9 total. Here we go. Whoa, my mouse is going nuts. The screen here we go. All right. There we go. Okay. So the big news here is Jack Eichel skated at the optional this morning. The coach is like, I don't know if he's going to play, but I suspect he's going to play. I don't know what's going on. I got to unplug my mouse. Hold on.
Yeah, it's all signs are pointing to Eichel playing. He's been practicing in a no-contact jersey for a while now. It's like you said on Saturday's show, it seemed like they kept him out of the game against Buffalo just to kind of keep him from having to return from his injury against Buffalo. I would imagine Eichel is playing here tonight.
Yeah, sorry. My mouse was like screwing up my screen. I don't know what was going on there. But yeah, we don't have lines assuming Eichel's in because the Vegas lines with Eichel out are super heavy chalk because Stevenson, Barbashev, Amadio would fit with Colorado 1. Marchessault, Carlson, Brisson, only 15K. Like, I'm not sure what to expect with Eichelin. I don't know if they're going to put him with Marchessault. I don't know if they're going to put him with Stevenson. He's played with both this season. I don't know if you have a educated guess.
Yeah, can I just chime in there? Eichel's most popular line this year, I mean, with Mark Stone out, obviously, was Eichel, Barbashev, Marchessault. Considering like Vegas has been on a little bit of a slide of late, I guess a little bit of a slide is kind of putting it mildly. They're I think it's 2-6-1 in their last 9 games. They gave up 7 to Buffalo, 5 to Boston, 3 to Ottawa, 7 to Toronto, 5 to Nashville. Like, this is a team that's been getting pummeled. I can't imagine that they're going to be beholden to whatever lines that they've been running for the last 4, 5, 6 games. I think going back to Eichel, Barbashev, Marchessault is probably what they're going to do. William Karlsson and Michael Amadio have played a lot together this season, so I think that makes sense as a second line duo. But Karlsson and Marchessault, or Karlsson and Stevenson, really haven't played a lot together this year. So does Stevenson go down to be the third line center? I don't know exactly how it's going to work out. Do they want to manage Eichel's minutes, right? Because this is a game where they probably should win, even with Mark Stone injured, and it's Eichel's return game. So, like, does he play 19, 20 minutes, or is it closer to like 16 or 17? And then, Karlsson and Stevenson are both also getting like 16, 17 minutes. So, like, I don't know exactly how, like, we don't know how the lines are going to work out. We just won't know until warm-ups. My guess is it's Eichel, Barbashev, Marchessault, something like Karlsson, Amadio, Cotter on the second line, and then Stevenson down in the third line center, but he won't be like a 12-minute third line center. It'll be like 15, 16 minutes.
Yeah, that makes some sense. And luckily this game's in Columbus and not Vegas, so it's a 7 p.m. Eastern lock. So if you are interested in getting a lower-owned Eichel combination, stay tuned for that. There's no matchup that really concerns me coming back from Columbus, so yeah, I like any line Eichel's on, unless they completely go like Eichel, Brisson, and like Colasar. You know what I mean?
That's the one thing that kind of worried me is, like, do they leave like Marchessault, Karlsson, and Brisson? Like, do they leave those 3 together because they've been playing reasonably well, and then you put Eichel on the second line with like Stevenson and Amadio or something like that, and then you put Karlsson on the third line? Like, that kind of crossed my mind. But like I said, where the team only has like 2 wins in their last 9 games, I don't imagine that they're married to keeping those line combinations together.
Yeah. I mean, maybe Bruce Cassidy speaks at like 5 p.m. Eastern and we get a hint or something. But as long as Eichel's playing, which it sounds like he is, I am interested in that line because they're going to get the Jenner line. And the Jenner line has been very, very good offensively, but they have not been very, very good defensively. So, assuming Eichel's with real human beings tonight, not like make-a players from, NHL simulated 2025, like, I'm interested in the Eichel line. It's hard to say what else I'd have interest in because I need to see the Eichel line first, and that's the one I'd be more interested in. But if they do leave Marchessault, Karlsson together, I don't mind that combo. But we'll have to wait and see what the line combinations are. On the Columbus side, it's a bit more interesting, right? Because, yeah, with Eichel back, that's going to boost their power play, but Eichel's not a massive penalty killer, you know what I mean? Their penalty kill is still not great. Not that the Columbus power play is anything to, attach your wagon to, but I don't mind the Jenner, Gaudreau, Roslovic line. Like, they've been very, very good offensively. They're getting a little bit more ownership than I wanted them to, 7.5%. At 14.8 is fine. They have a 2.9 total on the slate, same as Florida, higher than the Rangers, higher than the Blues. You know what I mean? So they're expecting goals, so I don't mind them. And also the Marchenko, Vronkarov, Chinnikov line, they're coming in under 1% at 12.8. Like, that's something that actually would interest me. I've been off that line a lot this year, but they've started creating more, so I don't mind that second line from Columbus. But it is the Eichel line, whatever that is, assuming he has a normal line mate with him.
Yeah, I'll start on the Columbus side before kind of guessing over on the Vegas side. you mentioned the Jenner line and how well they've been playing offensively. And they're up near 200 minutes now at 5-on-5, 3.6 expected goals for per 60 minutes, 5 actual goals per 60 minutes, riding a little bit hot by shooting percentages. But, even if you knock that down to like 10% or whatever, they're still well above average scoring wise. So they've been pretty good offensively. And even if they do have Eichel, Marchessault, Barbashev as the top line, it's not really a line to worry about defensively. Like that Eichel line, 2.8 expected goals against per 60 when they skated together this year, 240 minutes together. So it's not that big of a concern for me. And Vegas really has not been that good defensively for a little while now. Because I was looking at Columbus's numbers since Boone Jenner returned. He's been back for 16 games now. In that span, like Vegas is sitting 27th by expected goals against per 60, 27th by actual goals against, like worse than Montreal in a 16-game span. That's 20% of the season. They've really been struggling defensively. I mean, part of it's probably injuries because there's time in there where Theodore and Stone and Eichel were all out of the lineup. Theodore coming back, I think, helps them more offensively than defensively. I think kind of the same thing for Jack Eichel as well. So I'm not super concerned about that matchup. 7.5% you mentioned with Columbus one on the top stacks. That'll probably change once we get our next run because Boston has new lines. We just got new lines for Calgary. Obviously, Vegas is going to have new lines. But 7.5% for that top line, 14,800. The thing is like if you want to play Columbus, you can't play at least not a full Colorado. You know what I mean? They're just too expensive for that. So you kind of have to make a decision of like this whole slate revolves around whether you want to play Colorado or not, one way or another. But I really do like that matchup for them. I do like the Voronkov line as well. They have been playing well, but they're not really getting minutes. Like, we mentioned on Saturday's show that Chinnikov was benched on Thursday, I think it was. And then in Saturday's game, they got like 12, 13 minutes. Like the Tessier, Sillinger, Nylander line actually got more ice time. Alex Nylander, top power play unit. You know what I mean? Like it's just so even though they're labeled as Columbus 2, they might not necessarily get the second line minutes here tonight. It might be Sillinger, Nylander, and Alex Tessier. And, Sillinger, Tessier, like fine offensive numbers, 65 shot attempts per 60 minutes, 2.5 goals per 60 minutes. They're going to avoid Eichel. That could be good, if they run into whatever Stevenson line that they have. Not super worried about any defensive matchups, really. So I think Sillinger, Nylander, Tessier, like if you want to just do a two-man of like Sillinger, Nylander, especially where Nylander's getting the power play time, I think that's fine to put in with your Colorado, but I do like Columbus 1. But yeah, like whatever, like you said, as long as Jack Eichel is playing with like actual NHL players on his wings here tonight, the line that I'm most interested in is Jack Eichel's line, not the least of which because none of us are going to get line combinations until warm-ups. And there will be people that jam in Jack Eichel, obviously, because he's returning here tonight. He's not super expensive. Yeah, 8K is heavy, but he's a lot cheaper than the top centers. He was a guy shooting a lot. He was 11th in the league by shots per 60 minutes before he got injured. Now, he wasn't playing heavy minutes. That's kind of the problem. Like, he's not a Nathan McKinnon where he's going to play 22 or 23 minutes, especially in this game where he returns. Like, if you could get 20, I think that would be the highest that he'll see in this matchup. But the nice thing is like, even if he's playing with Marchessault, is like no matter what other winger that they have beside them, it's not going to be that expensive. And it's going to be a low-owned combination because most people don't, swap their lineups around at 6:40 Eastern or whatever. So I like whatever line Eichel's on is the line that I like best on the Vegas side. I think Columbus 1 is very playable here tonight if you're not locked in on Colorado. And I do think Columbus 3, like a two-man of like I said, like Nylander and Sillinger or something like that is playable if you are looking for a cheap duo to pair with your Colorado Avalanche players.
Yeah. Eichel's only 4,000 on FanDuel, so that's almost min price. So he's going to be like 60% owned. Good luck with that. And you know who does swap lineups at 6:47 Eastern? Me and you. And has it worked out recently? No.
I mean, I did have a decent cash. It was that night that I think Sam Reinhart had 2 goals. Barkov had a 3-point night.
Like the Duck Sharks game, right?
Yeah. I would have done better if I would have stuck with the Sharks, but still had a pretty nice cash. But yeah, it's not very often that the old 657 swap works out super well.
You know what they say, ignorance is bliss, and it's true in NHL DFS. Florida Panthers with a 2.9 total heading into New York. The Rangers have a 2.7 total. The disrespect of the odds makers here. No, the Rangers only have one line that can score. Like, I wanted to play Mika Zibanejad, Chris Kreider, and Capo Caco the other night against Toronto. They got worked by Toronto 3. What are we doing? Anyway, I don't have too much interest in that line because more likely than not, they're going to see the Barkov line at 5-on-5, and that is not a good matchup. It's not the best matchup for the Barkov line either, because with Capo Caco there, they are very, very good defensively, and they are very slow-paced. So then you start going to the second lines, and I actually do have a fair bit of interest in Rangers too, and I think, the ownership is low for a reason. They're 20,800, and you obviously can't fit Colorado 1 with them. But if they go out the majority of the time against Bennett, Tkachuk, Cousins, that line isn't very good defensively, and Florida takes a lot of penalties. And the Rangers have a very good power play. So I honestly, maybe it's a homer take, but I do really like this line. And let's not I need to get out of the bubble of Devils and Islanders fans who just shit over Alexis Lafreniere. His career high in points is 39. He has 38 this year. He gets no power play time. He's having a very good season. So I'm in on Rangers too. It's just a matter of, right, if you want to play Colorado, you can't play Rangers too. But you're going to get them fairly low owned tonight. And I do think something else that you can do on the Florida side is, well, one, the Rangers are mixing up their bottom six, and it's making me very nervous because they're putting Barclay Goodrow with Jimmy Vesey and Will Cooley. And one of the beats was speculating that they might go out against the Barkov line. If that is the case, coaches should be fired on the spot. I don't think that's what's happening. I just think they want to give these younger kids. I don't know. I don't want to speculate, but if that happens, I'm gonna have a nice rant on the Twitter machine, yelling into the void. But as it is, Rangers 2. I think you can play Florida 1 just for the fact that they're fully correlated, and the way to beat Igor when he's rolling is on the penalty kill. So I think Florida 1 is fine. I think Florida 1 and New York Rangers 2 are nice contrarian options, nice pivots away from the Colorado 1 massive chalk.
I mean, Florida 1 has the higher top 2 stack percentage here tonight, right? Maybe you didn't want to hear that, but the top stacks tool does have the Florida top line at 15.3% and the Rangers second line at 12.3%. Basically the same price, only $300 difference. So, I mean, I'm not saying I'm targeting Florida 1. I'm not sure that Zibanejad is going to be going out against the Barkov line. They didn't do that when Columbus was in town not that long ago. They put out the Panarin and Lafreniere line against Goodrow. Now, obviously, the Goodrow, Jenner, Rozovic line is not the Barkov, Reinhart, Verhaeghe line. Those are two completely different animals. So maybe it was just trying to get Zibanejad away from tough matchups or whatever. But if that's the case, if they do send out Panarin, Lafreniere, etc., against Barkov, I do think that favors the Barkov line. That line has just
Yeah.
That line has just been tremendous this season. 3.1 expected goals for, 1.7 against per 60. Just looking back to the All-Star break, 3.5 actual goals for. They generate a lot of shots, but a lot of the shots are actually coming from the blue line. Like Alexander Barkov, he's only averaging about 2.2, 2.3 shots per game over his last 25 games. Carter Verhaeghe, under 3 shots per game over his last 25 games. Sam Reinhart, same thing. So, like, they're not shooting a ton. They are generating very good quality, though. Now, the biggest thing that worries me is that they do actually use this Banijad line in a shutdown role. Because, as you said, with Capo Caco there, it's night and day, right? With Capo Caco on that line this season, 2.1 expected goals for, 0.6 or 2.1 expected goals against, 0.6 actual goals against. They are tremendous defensively. And if you want to talk about it from a real NHL coach's perspective, it's probably the best line combination to create goal differentials in the favor of the Rangers. It's just terrible for DFS because they don't score, right? Like 3 years, like we brought it up on Saturday, it's 3 years together of Kako on the top line, 700 minutes, 2.1 goals per 60 minutes scored in 700 minutes together. It's awful.
It's not Kako's fault though. It's Zibanejad's fault.
I'm not gonna delve into that right now, but I have no interest in Rangers 1. I agree with you. For me, it's Rangers 2 or bust. And the thing is like I don't really care about the matchup in this game. I mean, I do and I don't. Like I'd rather have them go out against Tkachuk and Cousins than Barkov, obviously. But that Rangers line is generally good enough that I'm not super concerned about which matchups that they take, right? Because Panarin and Trocheck have just generally been very good together, regardless of Lafreniere on the other side. Lafreniere and Panarin obviously have had that chemistry this season. And Lafreniere, like you mentioned, the power play thing, 14 points in his last 20 games, full season, that's like 57 points. That's not super elite. Only 2 of those 14 points have been on the power play. So, like, he's doing a lot at 5-on-5. You want Panarin and Trocheck for that power play correlation because Florida does take a lot of penalties. 5.1 minor penalties taken per game over the last 8 weeks. Rangers above average by drawing power play opportunities in that stretch as well. So I like Rangers 2 here. The question is Rangers 2 or Florida 1. I'm going to be honest. The way Shesterkin's been playing does kind of worry me from a Florida perspective because it's one of those things like you're just waiting. We were just kind of waiting for Shesterkin to flip the switch, right? Like this was a guy who was the best goalie in hockey for 3 years and just didn't have a very good first half of the season. We see that all the time from goalies. Like Connor Hellebuyck's probably the best goalie of the last decade. And he has one bad, and he had a real bad season once upon a time like that. Those things happen with goalies. That's what worries me from the Florida perspective. I'm going to be honest. I'm not super high on stacking either side. Like both these teams for different reasons are pretty good defensively. The Rangers because just Shesterkin, Florida because they are good defensively. You see the low total, the 5.5 total. If you want to play them, I don't have a problem with that, but I don't think that this is necessarily a game where I'm like super excited to go stacking. I would probably play Rangers 2 over Florida 1, but I'm not super excited about either side. I will say Florida 3 is a little bit interesting to me because Rodriguez, Lundell, and Luosterainen have legitimately been good. 3.3 expected goals for, 1.8 against per 60, 3.2 actual goals for. Evan Rodriguez, 2.7 shots per game over his last 15 games. Anton Lundell, just under 2. They're going to probably see that Berkeley-Goodrow matchup, and that is a really good matchup for Florida. So I think Florida 3 is one of those stacks that you can use with your expensive Colorados. Rangers 2 I like best in this game. I agree with you. I'm not super excited about stacking either top 6 here.
Yeah, like I'm not like gung-ho, let's go play New York Rangers 2, but like 5.1 minor penalties a game, and you get, Panarin, who's the most involved on the power play. It's just like, little eyebrow raising, especially when you're going to get them at the 10th of an ownership of, Colorado won tonight. It might not matter when Colorado just, bends over the whole slate, but like if they don't, you could have a nice low-owned line there. Boston Bruins with a 3.1 total heading into Toronto. The Leafs have a 3.4. Boston mixing up their lines in power plays this morning. They're going Marchand, Coyle, DeBrusk, Heinen, Geeky, Pasternak, JVR, Bachwist, Frederick. Zaka skated, wasn't on the line rushes. If he does play, he probably slots in where Geeky is. Power play 1 is now McAvoy, Pasta, Marchand, Coyle, and Van Riemsdyk. So that's across 3 lines. This is a bummer of massive support. I am upset. I am angry. And I need help. But anyway, I'm still angry because now I would imagine the Matthews line is going to go out against the Pasternak line just because Pasternak's their best player. I was hoping that maybe they get the Domi matchup. I mean, it doesn't really matter, right? Samsonov's in that. And Lyubushkin is back. Look at me. I'm excited now. God, the Leafs just suck. So, like, I kind of like that Heinen, Geeky, Pasternak line. If it is Zaka, whatever, he's a guy. He's like, it's like the same guy. I wanted to power play stack here tonight, and I wanted to play Marchand, Coyle, Pasta because they were fully correlated, but then they went and mixed up the lines. I don't really like full, stacking a power play across 3 lines, especially on this slate. So it would be the Pasternak Heinen line. Like, I don't think you need a full stack. Like, just Pasternak and Heinen is fine. Geeky and Pasternak. And just kind of hope that they do see some of the Domi matchup. Like, Toronto doesn't hard match. So I wanted to like Boston. I almost never like Boston, and I was telling you I like Boston here tonight. So it's probably that Pasternak line. You don't have to full stack it. If it is Geeky, like I wish Geeky was on the top power play, but he's not. So and Heinen's not even on either unit, but he's had a good 5-on-5 season, so I think you can take him along for the ride with Pasternak. On the Leafs side, like I'm just not 100% sure what I really want to do. Like, they broke up Pasternak and Marchand, which they needed to do because that line just gets run over. Like, they want to make it work so bad, it just doesn't. Like, the Leafs top line has a 16.4% top 2 stack priced in between Florida 1 and Rangers 2 at 6.1% ownership. Like, if you had to give me a choice of all 3 of those lines, I think it would be Toronto 1. Just from the fact that Matthews is just having an unbelievable season. You can say whatever you want about Marner. Like, my feeling on Marner. When Marner's not shooting, he sucks. The good Marner is when he shoots the puck. He did score the other night, but he's still not shooting that much. Nice. Like, he's cheap enough where you bring him along. You know what I mean? And I think Toronto 2 is a bit interesting as well. Like, you can do whatever you want with Domi, but Bertuzzi, Nylander for the power play. Like, Bertuzzi is still too cheap for his role. So I don't mind that, but it is some sort of Boston that I think I like the best in this game.
Yeah, I'll start on the Toronto side. I'll say, like, I'm not super stoked about playing Matthews here tonight.
Talk to me.
Yeah. One of the reasons for that is, like you mentioned, Marchand and Pasternak getting run over. They don't have good defensive numbers together. They are better apart. The Marchand, DeBrusk, Coyle line, 2.4 expected goals against, 1.6 actual goals against per 60. That is kind of why they keep breaking up Pasternak and Marchand, is because they are much better defensively when they're apart. The difference for me is whether or not, like, I agree with you in a sense, like DFS wise, Pavel Zacha's like kind of just a guy. But I do think he's a pretty big defensive upgrade over Morgan Geeky. And if you look at Pasternak and Zacha's numbers without Brad Marchand, like, league average expected goals against, actual goals against under 2 per 60 minutes. Like if Zach is in the lineup and on that second line, all of a sudden that is a pretty tough top 6 defensively. And while Toronto doesn't super hard match, Matthews will be out a lot against the Boston top 6. So that's kind of one of the reasons why I'm not super high on the Matthews line. I guess I would probably prefer them. I would prefer them to Florida. I still think I would rather play Rangers. Like if we're talking about lines in that 20 to 21K range, I think I would still rather play Rangers too over Toronto. I think this is a Toronto depth game for me. Like we can make fun of, I like to make fun of John Tavares being a third line center, making $10.5 million or whatever it is, and how Bobby McMahon might be the team's third best goal scorer now after Matthews and Nylander. But the fact is that they've played pretty well together. Like they're only up at 80 minutes, which isn't a ton of time. 80 minutes without Nylander next to them, by the way. So, but 70 shot attempts per 60, 3.5 expected goals per 60, 3.8 actual goals per 60 minutes at 5-on-5. McMahon hasn't scored in 5 straight games, but he still has 18 shots. Like McMahon's not like Marco. This might not be the best because I think Carcone had a two-goal game yesterday. But remember Michael Carcone in Arizona had that stretch where he had like 14 goals in 20 games or something like that.
Cy Young season.
Yeah, and it was because he was shooting 40%. Like that's not quite like obviously Bobby McMahon has had an elevating shooter percentage. That's why he's gone goalless for a little while. But McMahon is still shooting where Carcone was not. Like McMahon and Tavares and Yarncroc, like you mentioned it, they absolutely throttled the Rangers on Saturday night. One of those beatdowns where I had to go check a couple different sources to make sure that the website didn't screw up the numbers. Sorry to say, like that's just kind of what happened. And if you're going to go out, they're probably going to get second, maybe third line matchups against the Bruins. They would, even with Zacha in, those would be their 2 weakest defensive lines. They're not that expensive either. That Tavares McMahon, Calle Yarncroc line, 12,200, 5.3% ownership. They're cheap enough where you can stack them with Colorado 1. And, you know, you're probably going to have to use a couple pretty cheap defensemen, but you can stack them with Colorado 1. I kind of like that Toronto third line here tonight. I also like the Boston third line. Assuming it's James Van Riemsdyk with Trent Frederick, those two have really good offensive numbers together this season. 3.4 expected goals per 60, 2.9 actual goals per 60. JVR on the top power play unit for Boston. Toronto's power play has gotten a little bit better, but or penalty kills, sorry. But, you know, league average doesn't really scare me for any matchup reasons. So that Boston third line as well, I think is another one of those trios that you can use with your Colorado, especially because while Toronto doesn't hard match, they are trying to get that Domi line against the opposing bottom sixes, which makes a lot of sense because they suck ass defensively. But that's a really good matchup for the Boston third line. So I'm not super high on the big names in this game. I'm not super high on the Matthews and Marchands and what have you. I'm more in on both third lines, especially if you're looking for stacks with your Colorado players.
That is valid. We're always looking for stacks with our Colorado plays. Unfortunately, just the name of the game. Jam Colorado, find the value. Just wanted to say, if you click the link in the chat below, you get access to the best NHL data and tools in the industry. You get player and ownership projections, top stack tools, line combinations, access to the premium Discord, which, you know, I have issues. My issues come in the Discord. Cliffy's in there. Jake and his Giga Chat Jawliner in there. There are some other fellas in there. There is a daily deposit Frostback. You say, hey, Frostback, who are you playing in goal tonight? Oh, you're playing Justice and Newen? Chips all in on the Blackhawks. But not really.
Well, kind of.
Yeah. But that'd be interesting if he played Justice and Newen tonight. But we'll ask him around 5 p.m. Eastern. When coaches speak, that's when we ask Tyler. I just doxed him, sorry. But he doxes himself. But anyway, click that link in the chat, get in there, get access to all the data that we show on the show, and go about your day. Thank you guys for the support. You guys rule. St. Louis Blues, they 2.8 total. Heading into Philadelphia, the Flyers have a 3.1. Travis Konechny still out. Sam Ersson in net. Sean Couturier still in the fourth. I don't even okay. I thought maybe it was like, oh, maybe he's banged up and Torts wanted to give him a low minute game. No, he's still down there with Delorier. How you doing? You did mention with Couturier down on the fourth line that they have been using the Cates Hathaway polling line, Paling, however you pronounce it, as a shutdown line. And they have been very good, which really isn't surprising because Noah Cates has been he was the one guy last year that you wanted to avoid in Philly. But they've been very, very good, which means they're going to probably see a fair bit of that Thomas Kyrou Buchnevich line. And that's sad because I wanted to play them. Because Ersson sucks. But that 5-on-5 matchup is not great. And the Flyers still have a pretty good penalty kill. If you get there in MME, fine. I wanted to come into this day playing Rangers 2, St. Louis 1. Now I don't even know what I'm going to do. I'll let you touch on their defensive numbers. They are very, very good. So I probably don't have a ton of interest in St. Louis as a whole because I don't want to play. I mean, I guess you could play Jake Neighbors as a one-off since he's on the top power play, but you're not targeting the Blues for the power play here tonight. So I don't have a ton of interest in the Blues. You want to play Kevin Hayes for Narrative Street? Have 3 of 150 Kevin Hayes just because, he's coming back. Good for you. My interest is on the Flyers side, and they're getting some ownership. A lot more than I expected. Tippett, Frost, Atkinson, 12.8% projected ownership. Farabee, Forrester, Lawton, 13.2%. Forrester's on a heater right now. You want to chase that? That's fine. I think I prefer the Tippett, Frost, Atkinson line. Tippett's just insane for DFS. All he does is shoot. So it's the ownership that worries me a little bit. Plus the Flyers power play sucks. So you'd even strength stack there. So I think it's the Frost line, but I'm fine with the Farabee line as well.
Yeah, I'll just say I don't have a ton of interest in St. Louis here tonight because, as you mentioned, they are using the Noah Cates line in a shutdown matchup. Noah Cates, he's not a guy for DFS, but he is legitimately one of the best defensive forwards in the league, and it's kind of crazy because I think this is only his third season, but he's already established himself. Think about Noah Cates playing for John Tortorella, of all coaches. Cates is in his age 24 season, third year, only his second full season, and he's being used at home in shutdown matchups as they're in a playoff race with 20 games left or whatever. That's how good he actually is defensively, because that's something that Tortorella really doesn't do a lot of.
And he hates young players too.
Exactly.
That to happen is insane.
Exactly. So the entire line with Ryan Paling there, 1.4 expected goals against per 60 minutes at 5-on-5. It's not a big sample, only about 85 minutes. Cates and Hathaway have a much, nearly not quite double the sample, but up near 150 minutes, and the expected goals against is 1.5. These guys just absolutely do not give up anything defensively. Sam Ersson, saw somebody saying he's in the running for Rookie of the Year, and I swear to God, I almost put my face to my computer screen.
I'm in the running for Rookie of the Year.
What are we talking about? Anyways, so the Blues don't have to generate a ton to get a couple by Sam Ersson, and there's not a lot of ownership, right? 3.4% ownership. So because there's not a lot of ownership, especially if you're 20 maxing or something like that, I think the Blues are still fine to play, but I do think it is a brutal matchup for them. And there are just other places that I'd rather go. Honestly, this is another case where I think the line I like best on the St. Louis side is the third line. Kevin Hayes revenge narrative or not. Kevin Hayes, the new Josh Anderson, he's got 1 goal in his last 30 games. But they are better offense. I think they're better offensively than that Shen Neighbors Bolduc line. Like a lot of Neighbors' value just comes from, especially from the power play and just being able to shoot. So I think St. Louis 3, like if you want to mix, a couple guys from that line in with Colorado, I think that's fine. But I'm just not super high on the Blues in general. I agree with you. For me, this is a Philly game. I agree also on Tippett, Frost, Atkinson. That line, 75 minutes together, not super great offensively. Cam Atkinson kind of seems like he's a little bit of the problem on that line. One of the reasons why I do like them is because like Tippett just shoots a lot. Like that's basically it. Like you mentioned how Owen Tippett like basically just like doesn't stop shooting. Like he only had a couple shots in that game against Ottawa. But he has been just a shot volume monster. I do like that line here. It sucks that Farabee, Forster, and Lawton are getting that much ownership because honestly, I think that might be their best offensive line here tonight. Like Atkinson just like I hate to say it, he does seem kind of washed. Like it feels like they're only playing Atkinson there because they're he hates Bobby Brink and he won't play Couturier in the top 6 anymore and Travis Konechny's hurt. Like there's only so many guys that can actually play there. But the Philly second line, 64 shot attempts per 60 in over 200 minutes together for Forster and Lawton, 4.2 actual goals per 60. Farabee and Forster, both on the top power play unit. They're going to get depth matchups, which means great matchups against the St. Louis second and third line. Like, I know they're coming in with a ton of ownership. I kind of like that Farabee, Forster, Lawton line and just, riding the Tyson Forster train until the wheels fall off. So I think the Tippett line is certainly fine to play here. I'm going to lean towards the Farabee, Forster, Lawton line. Not a lot of interest in St. Louis.
So I wonder what happens to their ownership when we get a run with the new Boston lines with possibly Eichel in, because I don't know, like maybe it comes down a little bit. Sealer blocking shots because Torts says he has balls. That is such a Torts quote.
Yeah,
it's got hockey sense, but it's mostly his balls. Okay, sweet. Chicago Blackhawks with a 2.1 total heading into Colorado. The Avs have a 3.9. Yeah, looks like Nishushkin's going to be out. I was kind of hoping he'd be back tonight, or maybe a surprise back, but he wasn't practicing on a power play unit in morning skate, so that leads me to believe he's going to be out. This sucks. Like, it actually sucks because, like, today, like, I want to change my narrative and go back to what Cliffy was saying the other day. Like, the line with Lehkonen just isn't very good. But they're going to play 25 minutes, and the majority of those minutes are going to be against Bedard. And that line is not good defensively. Surprise, surprise. Maybe those they're going to have a couple shifts against the the Joey Anderson line. They play against everybody. But like that Bedard line with Donato there, they're like 3.5 expected goals against per 60. Third and fourth line's not great. Like it's literally the Jason Dickinson line that is just really, really good, and they're going to avoid that for the most part. So what do you say about Colorado? Like the line with Lehkonen, they have a big sample. They have 2.73 expected goals per 60. That sucks for McKinnon line. But at the same time, like, they're never going to leave the ice. The one thing, and like, if they do leave the ice and only play 19, 20 minutes, it's because they're winning like 7-3 or 7-1 or whatever it is. You know what I mean? So, like, they have a 50% top 2 stack percentage. That doesn't mean they're going to be a top 2 stack, but they have a goddamn good shot at it. 22.3% projected ownership. And I think that's low because, as we mentioned before, like, as we were talking before the show, there are a ton of cheap lines that fit with them tonight. If there was only like one on this slate, it would be more of like a conversation, but you can get different easily with Colorado one here tonight. I don't know, man.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even know.
Yeah.
You just play him. You play him if you want.
Yeah. One of the reasons why we didn't like Colorado when they were playing Chicago, you mentioned the matchup when they played Chicago last week, was they were going to be matched up against the Jason Dickinson line. And the funny thing is like Nathan MacKinnon had a goal and an assist in that game. Now that was a bigger slate. That was a 12-game slate. I think it was Thursday.
Yeah. They're playing
that was a 12-game slate, but he wasn't even amongst the top 20 DFS scores on that night with a goal and assist and 4 shots. Pretty sure he wasn't in any of the winning lineups. That was them on the road going up against Jason Dickinson. Now they're at home and are going to be going out against the Connor Bedard line. You mentioned the defensive numbers for Connor Bedard with Ryan Donato next to him, 3.2 expected goals against, 3.2 actual goals against per 60 minutes. Like they are, depending what metrics you look at, twice as bad defensively as the Jason Dickinson line. So like this is absolutely a matchup where Colorado should just throttle them. I think that one of the problems with playing Colorado is what you saw happen in that game against Chicago, right? Like they scored, I think, 4 goals fairly quickly. It was either like all in the first period or all in the first 25 or 30 minutes of the game. And Nathan MacKinnon only ended up with 19-15 in ice time. I think that was his lowest mark in 10 games or something like that. And the first or second time in those 10 games, he didn't play at least 20. One of the things that makes MacKinnon so valuable at 10,500, even though he's 10,500, is that he could rack up 8, 9, 10, 11 shots. Like he had back-to-back games with at least 10 shots very recently. If he only plays 19 minutes, it makes it hard to rack up all those shots, right? So on DraftKings, like that's kind of one of the reasons why you wouldn't want to play him. But even with the subpar expected goals for numbers, we'll say with Arturi Lehkonen there, like this is just a tremendous matchup. Like that's the whole problem is like the Connor Bedard line, very bad defensively. The Nathan MacKinnon line, very good offensively with Lehkonen or not. So I mean, yes, I like Colorado here in this matchup. Like what, like, you know, like what do you want me to say there?
You can say, really.
Yeah, I think this is a situation where I'm not one offing Nathan MacKinnon here at 10,500 because I think there is legitimate concern that he plays like 19 minutes, puts up 4 shots, has like, you know, maybe a goal and an assist, which would be a decent DFS night, but not good value for him or anything like that. And he's not an optimal player. If I play Colorado here tonight, I stack Colorado here tonight. Like that, I think that's just the best advice that I can offer. Funny enough, it was Zach Parise that did all the damage in that last game. 2 goals and an assist or something like that. Like if you want to go down to the Colorado depth, I think that's fine. I worry that you would run into the Jason Dickinson matchup eventually, and you know where Chicago doesn't take a lot of penalties, their penalty kill is still very good. Maybe you want to focus more on the 5-on-5, so you want to use the depth guys. But yeah, I just do love Colorado one. The interesting thing is whether to play Chicago or not, right? Because the offensive numbers are a lot better with Ryan. I almost say with Connor Bedard. It's like, yeah, obviously with Ryan Donato on the top line, you know, not good defensively, obviously, as we mentioned, but 3 expected goals, 3.9 actual goals per 60. That's actually the goal scoring is not that far behind the Nathan MacKinnon line with Arturi Lehkonen in there. Like it's like an 8% difference or something like that. It's not massive. Colorado's been taking fewer penalties over the last couple months, but their penalty kill is still very, very bad. Chicago's power play, not that bad, actually, with as long as Connor Bedard and, believe it or not, Nick Foligno is playing the net front. 61 shots per 60 minutes, 11 goals per 60 minutes. That's pretty good, actually. Like, I don't mind Chicago one here tonight at all. That's the only thing I like from the Chicago side. But yeah, I love Colorado here. It's just a matter of whether you want to pay 24K or whatever. The best advice I could give is that if you play Colorado, you stack Colorado. You don't just one off Nathan MacKinnon.
Yeah, I don't even know if it's possible to do Colorado on a Makar, but that would set you off on a nice, unique path. You might have to play like an 8,000 line, like the Cates line or something like that. But like, who knows? They pot a goal. It could be good. But Will Dickinson's line, Shadow Colorado 1. No, this game's in Colorado. Colorado gets the last change. So
if you play Colorado 1 with McCarr and then put in Tarasov because he's starting for Columbus at 7,100, you can fit it, but then you have to put in 4 mid-price players. Literally, your average salary left on DK is 2,500. So
maybe you leave off Lekin and add in McCarr. Like, I don't know. You can mess around with it. Like, who knows? Let's talk about the last game of the night. Seattle Kraken with a 2.8 total. Heading into Calgary, the Flames have a 3.1. Connor Zary is out. They called up Matt Coronado. He will not be taking his spot. Andrei Kuzmenko is taking the spot next to Kadri and Pospisil. Why? Something
because
about
he was
Kid.
in the Elias Lindholm package and they have to try to make it work.
Goddamn right. Alex Weinberg out for trade-related reasons. If he goes to the Rangers, I will melt. That might be good for you guys. I don't know. Since they traded Tanev and these lines, like Calgary's defensively not very good. Kind of interested in the McCann, Eberle, Beniers line. I know they're going to be getting back on Coleman, Mangiapane, but like, whatever. Like, Tolvin and Gord, Ty Cartier is interesting, 9,600. But the thing is with Cartier, like, we like him, but like he just gets yo-yoed by Nextdoor so bad. Like, if he plays like 7 minutes tonight, it wouldn't be surprising at all. So it would be the McCann, Eberle, Beniers line. On the flip side, like with Kuzmenko next to Pospisil and Kadri, I don't have a ton of interest there. Like, Zary is a much better player than Kuzmenko. If you want to one-off Kadri, like, fine, but like Seattle's decently good defensively. They have a good penalty kill. They're just boringly good, whatever you want to say. So like, I don't have a ton of interest outside of the Coleman back on Mangiapane line. And even there at negative leverage, I'd rather just find like a line with lower ownership because I don't want to pin my night to Calgary. You know what I mean? Like they're clearly trying to sell the pieces that they can. So I'm more in on Seattle 1 here.
Yeah, we talk about all the time about how good the Flyers are defensively. Since January 1st, the Kraken are right next to them by expected goals against per 60. And because they've had better goaltending, the actual goals against is top 5 in the league at 5-on-5. And, you know, Seattle doesn't take a lot of penalties either. So not really a great power play matchup for Calgary. I don't know. Like, I did have interest in Seattle. Like, you and I were talking before the show, Calgary's defensive numbers really not that great. Middle of the league at best since January 1st, and they're going to get worse without Chris Tanev. He's a really good defensive defenseman. So I did have interest in Seattle, but with Alex Weinberg out, we don't know what the lines are going to look like. Like McCann, Beniers, Eberle, I feel pretty confident is going to stay together, but maybe they move McCann down to that second line center spot, right? Like, he is a guy that has played center, and then they can move like Ty Cartier to the top line, or they can move Yamamoto to the top line, or something like that. Like, it's kind of the problem with Seattle now is like with Weinberg out and with the optional skate or whatever, we have no idea what the lines are going to be. And this is the last game on the slate because it starts 30 minutes after Colorado does. So if you stack Seattle or whatever in that late game, you probably should be ready to make swaps. Now, the nice thing is none of the Seattle lines are expensive, right? Gord, McCann, Beniers, Eberle, sorry, is the most expensive at 13,200. And on the other side, the most expensive Calgary line is 13,100. So you could put in like Seattle 1 or whatever. Like, if you do like them, you put in Seattle 1 and then you wait for the swap, because there are going to be a bunch of lines in this game that are all going to be similarly priced or very cheap, just generally speaking. I wouldn't be concerned about not having the salary to make the right line combinations when warm-ups start. I would just be concerned about being around when warm-ups start to make the necessary line swaps. Depending what they do, I don't have as much interest in McCann, Beniers, Eberle, just because I am worried about that backline line. Like, it is a good defensive line. The numbers have been average defensively since the All-Star break, but generally speaking, this season they've been really, really good defensively. It's the rest of the lineup that doesn't pose any problem whatsoever. So depending what they do, like maybe they just move Gord up and then put somebody else into the third, Seattle third line center spot, and then they just run the top six heavy. It's not something Seattle does a lot, but it's it's a weird situation because they're trading Wenberg or whatever. Whatever the second line ends up being, whatever the line is after Beniers, Eberle, probably McCann, but Beniers, Eberle, X is the line that I have interest in because I think it's the better matchup. You're not worried about the power play, et cetera, it's not a good power play spot because, Seattle just spreads across 4 units, 4 even strength lines anyways, and it's not that great of a power play matchup. But I think it's a really good 5-on-5 matchup, and it could probably get you a pretty low-owned combination to put in with your Colorado stacks. That's just kind of what I'm getting to. On the Calgary side, it's like, holy Christ. Like the Kadri numbers without Connor Zary are just not good. Since November 1st, in 155 minutes without Zary, 2.7 goals per 60 minutes is 3.7 with Zary, and the 2.7 is even lower when you go back to the start of the season. Like they called up Zary because Kadri was struggling in October. So like, I really, really wish they would just not play Kuzmenko at all. I don't have any interest in any line that he's on. For me, it's probably Sharon Govich, Huberdeau, Dryden Hunt lines. It's like
Dryden Hunt.
I like once I get to that point, it's like maybe I just shouldn't play Calgary here tonight. So considering I think the line that I like most for maybe a little bit of power play time and maybe some decent 5-on-5 matchups is Sharon Govich, Huberdeau, Dryden Hunt. Considering that's where I'm at with Calgary, I think I'm out on Calgary and I'm in on the Seattle side. We just have to wait for warm-ups to see what those lines look like.
Rangers legend, Dryden Hunt, by the way. But yeah, I kind of agree. Like, just a mess. Coming up after us at 5:30 p.m. Eastern, NBA Deeper Dive with Josh Engelman and Matt Bellman. 6:30 p.m. Eastern, NBA Live Before Lock with Greg Ehrenberg and former Iowa State caddy Eric Lindquist. 7:30 p.m. Eastern, the playback live stream, NBA Watch Along on playback. That's a fun little show. You watch the games, talk a little late swap. It's not Friday, so there is late swap. So check that out if you're NBAing. Let's talk about defensemen. Top tier, Cale Makar at 8,300, 1,800 more expensive than the next guy. Then you have Werenski, Shea Theodore, Charlie McAvoy, Morgan Riley, Mackenzie Weegar. Zach Werenski, Shea Theodore, the guys I'm targeting outside of Makar. I think Makar is an interesting play here tonight because he'll probably play his 23 minutes regardless of what happens. So I think he's an interesting spend up, but it's Werenski and Theodore. On one note before I kick it to Cliffy, if you are playing Noah Hannafin tonight, I would just make sure he's playing because if they're going to scratch Alex Wenberg for trade-related reasons, they might sit Noah Hannafin for the same thing, so just be aware.
Yeah, I don't know if Calgary's smart enough to do that.
Probably not.
I agree that generally speaking, it's a concern this time of year. I'm just not sure Calgary's smart enough to do that. Makar, Theodore, Werenski are my 1, 2, 3 in my numbers. I think they're 1, 2, 3 by stochastic projections as well. So I think those are the 3 guys that you probably want to look to for your more expensive defensemen. The mid-price range, I suspect the Colorado guys will get a lot of ownership, but obviously Devin Taves in the mid-price range. I think Alex Pietrangelo is fine to use because he's still getting 23 minutes a game, even with Theodore back. But I kind of I know it's the Rangers should get a lot of power plays here tonight. I don't mind this matchup for Jacob Trouba. Sometimes the Florida Panthers can get pretty high event, and his shot blocking and his goal scoring can kind of play well into that. Don't mind Torrey Krug. It's not a good power play matchup for him in the Blues, but I honestly think I would rather play Krug here tonight and hope that he gets in on the goals than just stack the St. Louis top line. There are a lot of cheap defensemen that I like here tonight. So I think for my defenseman build. Usually I don't play two expensive defensemen. Usually I'll go one expensive, one cheap, like Star Scrub. I think it's a night you can even go double scrub, depending what you do with your Colorados. But Tyler Wotherspoon for Boston, he was over 20 minutes in the last game, even with Derek Forbort back. Sam Girard for Colorado. Like Josh Manson isn't playing tonight for Colorado. They're bringing in Caleb Jones. I guess if you want it, like Caleb Jones is 2,500. I don't know how much ice time he's going to get, but it's the Chicago Blackhawks, so maybe they don't want to play Taves and Girard and Makar a whole bunch of minutes. They'll give him more to Bowen Barham or Caleb Jones or whatever. All the Colorado defensemen are literally in play here tonight, but I do like Sam Girard. He's been shooting the puck a little bit. Both Cam York and Igor Zamula, kind of for different reasons. Cam York's been getting good ice time. I think he had 2 goals last week, which feels unbelievable for him. But Igor Zamula running the top power play unit for Philly, so at least there's that. Alex Vlasic, 3K for Chicago. Somebody in our chat said feels like he's a pretty good bet for the block bonus, and I agree. Adam Larson for Seattle. Anytime he's under 4K, I have interest in Adam Larson. So 3,700 is just fine. As I mentioned, 2,500 Caleb Jones, I think, is in play. The Borg, Will Borgen, 2,800 for Seattle, perfectly fine. Dmitry Kulikov, 2,500 for Florida. He's just a min-price defenseman playing for a good team that you can put in. There's no particular lean for him. I think I might honestly rather play Caleb Jones.
Yeah, I mean, the one concern with Caleb Jones is he might play 8 minutes, but when you're playing a $2,500 defenseman, those are the risks we take sometimes. So let's talk a little bit about goalies here. Top of the board, Justice Newen and Aiden Hill. Aiden Hill at 8,300. I much prefer to Newen or Urson. I like Shesterkin tonight because, like you said, Florida can get a little spicy with the volume sometimes. Bobrovsky, shot volume's concerns, but he is cheap. Like, there isn't a goalie that I truly, truly like here tonight. Yeah. Maybe Swayman, but I'm not going to name every single goalie in the slate like I did on Saturday.
That was pretty cool. That'd be a good bit to do, like, for the rest of the season, is just name every goalie, just like one stat, and then hand it off. The 3 that pop out to me are Igor, Binnington, and Grubauer. Igor, like I said, he's just been on an absolute tear, and it's like if he's back, like, it's bad for every other team, and it's great for DFS if you want to play Igor. So Igor, 7,900 is popping. Jordan Binnington, where Philly's power play is just so bad, he might see a lot of 5-on-5 shots, and 5-on-5 shots without Travis Konechny in the lineup. I think that's kind of what you want. For Seattle, like, I'm worried about shot volume a little bit from a perspective for Philip Grubauer, but Grubauer on the road at his price against a Calgary team that is really just kind of starting to shed everybody, as you mentioned, and for some reason is playing Andrei Kuzmenko again. I kind of like Philip Grubauer for 7,400. So my 3 goalies are going to be Igor, Binnington, Grubauer. I don't mind Tarasov at 7,100 here. Like, he hasn't had a good season, but Columbus can give up shots. And honestly, the Vegas power play should be better with Eichel back, but it was adding Mark Stone that was a big deal for them last season and this season on the power play. Without Mark Stone, I still don't know that they're going to be very good with the power play. So I imagine people playing Colorado are going to be in need with a very cheap goalie. I think Tarasov's fine. Yeah,
I don't mind it. I mean, take Eichel off that Vegas team right now. They're cheeks, so. And he might only play like 16, 17 tonight. You like him for your hat trick pick?
I don't know why I wrote him down, but I guess I'm just going to stick with it. I do like his line here tonight. I'm going to say Joel Farabee.
Interesting. I'm going a little bit spicy as well. It's not really spicy with the name value, but spicy on the team. And in the matchup, I'm going Connor Bedard.
That would be something. Like a 4-0 Chicago Blackhawks shutout would be just swell here tonight. Let's see what happens.
Yeah. I am flag planting right now. I'm saying you will not see Colorado 1 in my lineup. I might play Makar, but you will not see Colorado 1 in my lineup tonight.
I am not going to say anything like that.
I don't want any of that.
No, I mean, good luck, man.
I like pain. So we will be back tomorrow. We got a big slate tomorrow. We'll also be here Thursday and Saturday. Good luck, everybody. And we'll see you in the Discord. I'll post my Colorado one list lineup on Twitter just so you know I'm a man of my word, but I am a man of my word. And good luck, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.
Good luck tonight, everyone.